perennial problem in election administration across the country.
Okay, so thank you, Zibi. Yes, the chairman of INEC, Mahmoud Yakubu, is indeed correct to suggest or indicate that this lingering fuel scarcity
Mm.
might have an adverse effect on the scheduled elections that are coming up on the 25th of February and the 11th of March, respectively. And if possibly a possible runoff if the presidential election is inconclusive. Now, it begs no saying that petrol is needed to fuel the vehicles that will carry the INEC officials and the election materials to the various polling units and to get them back to the INEC offices. So it's a very interesting question, and I marry this with the comments from the NNPC yesterday, where they assured Nigerians that for the coming elections, there will be sufficient amounts of petrol made available, petrol and I believe diesel, made available to INEC for carrying out its functions required for the elections. So, on that perspective, let's continue to watch. He then went on to discuss arrangements made with the transport unions. So, the question would be, why are we talking to transport unions? Now, we must remember that a lot of vehicles are required to effectively move election materials and officials from the various INEC offices to the various polling units and back. It's a massive operation that will probably require tens of thousands of vehicles, big and small. Now, there's no point saddling INEC with all those vehicles because, okay, after the election, they conduct elections basically once every 4 year cycle. And when those vehicles are not being used, they will fall into
Mm.
disrepair, they will be abandoned, and things will start getting missing. So they need to speak to the transport workers, and I note that they've also now included the Maritime Workers Association of Nigeria, especially for the riverine areas which are not easy to access because there are no accessible land routes.
Mm.
So these are very interesting times, and we do hope that just like the previous elections, that this arrangement hold firm and that whatever is due the transport unions is paid promptly so that we don't get reports or protests from them that they're going on strike and the like. But all in all, let's continue to hope that INEC is still committed to delivering a free and fair election where voters are not disenfranchised, where the proper results are counted, the proper results are transmitted, and INEC officials do not allow any breaches of the Electoral Act, especially this issue of overvoting. And I enjoin voters at each polling unit. When you finish your accreditation and you have voted, if it is possible, stay back to protect the sanctity and integrity of the exercise you just participated in.
All right, let's go to the next story. And this is from Punch. Now, residents of border communities in states like Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina, and Kwara have opted for the CFA following the scarcity of new notes across the country. Now, residents, including traders and commercial drivers, are rejecting the old notes and insist that customers who do not have the new currency must pay for goods and services with francs.
So here we go then. This hasty implementation of the new Naira policy, this is one of the effects that can readily be seen. So the new notes clearly are still not widely available, and it's been extended to the 10th of February. Today is the second. These states we're talking about are literally border states in the commercial and financial capital of Nigeria. The Naira notes are largely nowhere to be found. So if in Lagos they're literally nowhere to be found,
Mm.
why are we surprised that they're not seen in the border states? And they're not, and because they engage in cross-border transactions, Our neighbors in Niger know that the old Naira notes will soon cease to be legal tender, especially the 1,000 Naira notes, the 500 Naira denomination, and the 200 Naira denomination. And they don't have the time to go to the banks. And it calls into question another issue. How many banks,
Mm.
the banks in Nigeria, the major banks, the national banks, how many of them have sufficient number of branches outside the regular big states? So when you read through the story, they keep saying that there's a near absence of POS agents or banks,
Mm.
and there's no time to do that. So they have resorted to the franc, the CFA, which is a widely accepted medium of exchange to carry out those transactions. And you find that even traders on the Nigerian side are now insisting on safer because they do not know when the new Naira notes will get to them. Now, the bigger question is, it is clear, even to the blind now, that the February 10th deadline is not realistic, and there will have to be a further extension.
Now, looking at this story, there's also something I found quite interesting. Some of the um, people who have spoken to reporters talk about how difficult it is to get to a nearby town or something to get access to cash. But it does seem like they are traveling across the borders relatively easily. So, how is it the people who don't have bank accounts, who don't have access to um, financial institutions, are readily traveling across borders? Are they using passports?
Okay, so you will find that in the northern parts of Nigeria, our borders aren't properly policed. We don't have enough border points, and in some places, it's literally equivalent to crossing the street.
Mm.
That is how easy it is. It is sometimes. Sometimes they see themselves. So a house could have one part on Nigerian territory, the other part on Nigerian territory. So it's a lot easier for them to shuttle across, and
Mm.
then there are roads that connect them. So, and there the officials who were there, the customs officials, it would not I would not find it surprising that they turn the other eye and do what some of their notorious colleagues have been known to do in the past, which is collect a fee and let everyone go in their merry good way.
Mm.
So in the north, cross-border travel is very easy, whether they're using passports or whether the passports are even being checked. That's a different question because even at Semen, I know for a fact it is possible to cross the border without a passport or any form of identification. You just need to have the right amount of money. I've seen it done before my very eyes.
Mm. Wow. All right, well, let us know what your thoughts are. The WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. Gary says, is the fuel scarcity affecting politicians from moving around in convoys? Jane Itze says, this thoughtless CBN policy has created more problems. Meat sellers are asking for new Naira notes and we cannot access the cash. The old notes are now 1K for every 10K, which is 1,000 Naira for every 10,000 Naira from POS. How are we supposed to live? And this one is from Mictol, and Mictol says, why didn't the CBN work with the e-Naira, making a USSD code, making it easy for people in rural areas without data to do transactions? Samuel from Lekki says, the CBN governor says each commercial bank receives a minimum of 300 million Naira daily. Okay, I'll have to confirm that. How can there not be new notes available unless the banks are hoarding them or giving them to politicians? All right, let's go on to the next.
So, no, so well, let me quickly take that. If he
Mm.
says CBN is giving commercial banks 300 million every day or every week,
Said daily.
no, I'm not sure they have. No, that's not possible.
Mm.
So even if it's 300 naira a week, now remember some of these banks have branches in 20, 24 states, and in each state you probably have 10, 20, 30 branches. So when you break it down further, you'll find that a branch may probably get 3 million or 4 million or maybe 6 million or 5 million. Now, if 2 or 3 thousand people show up wanting to collect 20,000 naira each, that's 60 million. You
Mm.
then have a problem. So clearly, the amount of money that was printed was insufficient. There isn't enough money to go around. So that's why we're not seeing the naira notes. And then it's sad to see that despite all of this, some people have privileged access to collect larger sums of these new naira notes and they're using it for the wrong purposes. But hey, it's what it is.
Right, this is coming from Daily Trust. Now, New Nigeria's People Party, the NNPP, says its presidential candidate, Rabiu Kwankwaso, has neither met nor discussed with the candidate from the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, or his representatives on any working relationship on the 2023 presidential elections. Now, he disclosed this in a statement that he issued yesterday in Abuja. This was issued by Ladipo Johnson, who is the campaign council spokesperson. And he says it's apparent that Kwankwaso is finishing the race stronger than the other candidates, and he specifically pointed out Atiku Abubakar.
Okay, so thank you, Zivi. So this is a direct fallout from Alhaji Atiku's statement where he suggested that he was in talks with either two or three of the other major candidates, and at least one was going to step down for him. Now, the OB candidate, the OB campaign, the Labour campaign council has come out to say that they don't know what he's talking about. Now, the MPP Kwakwanso group has come out to equally say they don't know what he's on about, and it is we don't need anyone to tell us that the APC presidential candidate is not going to step down for him. So clearly, that is a statement drawn from the imaginations of Mr. Atiku, and I don't know what he intended to achieve with that statement. But having said that, it just shows the lengths to which politicians will go to make statements they know that are not true, have no factual basis, and they get away with it. So the assertion that Mr. Kwakwanso's campaign is finishing strong, that's an opinion. That's fine. It's an opinion that is permitted under the Constitution. Whether in actual fact there's any real cognitive basis to support that contention is a different conclusion. So if they believe they're finishing strong, that's fantastic. On election day, we will know how strong they finished.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll continue the conversation on the other side. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1.
Let's take number 5 next.
Sorry?
Let's take number 5 next.
5, yeah, 5, 6, 8.
Okay, 5, 6, 8, yeah.
Okay.
6, yeah, 5, 6, 8,
Okay.
yeah. Are they bashing me today?
No. You haven't. Oh, wow. We'll read a few more messages and then we'll go on.
Do you prefer the morning show or the evening show?
Honestly, I'm indifferent. Like, both. Yeah.
It's just that in the morning you have to get up much earlier.
Yes, you have to get up much earlier. So, it's work, so you do it.
Okay. Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Okay. No, because I don't judge by the absence of a ring.
Oh, okay. All right, we're back on in 17.
You went to Unical, yeah? No, what school did you go to?
Yeah, Unical. Oh, not. We're alike.
Oh, right. The boarding school in Okada.
Okada, yeah. How do you know Okada? Smooth 98.1. This is Freshly Pressed, and we're looking at the headlines. And we have a few messages coming through. I'll read a few, and then we'll go on back to talking about the news. Now, this one is Dami from Ikeja. Demi says the CBN is risking a recession in the name of vote buying. The cure is worse than the disease. Shegun, since certain citizens are encouraging the CBN governor in this deliberate financial misadventure, they should also be happy with the hardship it's brought to people and to their businesses. Victor says, instead of INEC using transport unions, can they use services like ride hailing apps? Probably not for sensitive material, I believe. Okay, so let's move on to the next headline. This one is coming from this day. The federal government denounced insinuations by the governor of Kaduna State, Madam Nasir El Rufai, that some fifth columnists in the State House were working to frustrate the victory of the All Progressives Congress presidential candidate Bola Tinubu in the upcoming elections. Now, El Rufai had earlier, in an interview on a TV program, blamed some of the government policies, including the Naira redesign, persistent fuel scarcity, on these, what he terms, fifth columnists. Now, the wife of the president, interestingly, also shared that clip of Mr. El Rufai on her Instagram page. Is that in some way an endorsement of his statement?
Well, we can't really tell. So one interpretation could be that she's endorsing what he said, which then goes against the grain of supporting her husband, because when the governor of Kaduna State says the fifth columnists who are behind the redesign policy and then lingering for scarcity, we must remember that the CBN governor made it clear that he got the backing and support of the president before embarking on the Naira redesign policy. So, as the governor of Kaduna State calling the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria a fifth columnist, these are questions this is a question we need to ponder. Is he suggesting, because he's clearly said that even the lingering fuel scarcity can be blamed on fifth columnists. So in effect, he's criticizing the administration of the current president, saying that he should have ended the fuel scarcity by now, and because he's not done it, he's also impliedly accused him of incompetence and a failure to act, because we must remember that the president doubles as the minister for petroleum. Now, having said that, you're all in the same party. You have access to the president. Why are you ventilating your grievances in the public space? And it then goes to support the contention or the school of thought that suggests the president is not exactly enthused or interested in the campaign of the present APC presidential candidates, because it's now beginning to support the earlier contention that he indeed had a candidate at the APC presidential primaries, but his candidate did not win. Now, the president has consistently maintained it's a free and fair election. People should vote according to their various consciences. And that does not sit well with the presidential campaign of Mr. Bola Tinubu, because he naturally, no, it doesn't sit well with him, because he would have expected that at least one of the presidential rallies, the president would openly have come out to endorse him and ask his supporters to endorse him, because we must remember, President Buhari has shown over time that he has a consistent, dedicated fan base whose numbers range between 10 and 12 million or 15 million, who will follow him to any election and vote for him. Whether or not he has the ability to do what he says, they will vote for him. And the presidential campaign of the APC candidate was banking on getting some of those numbers, if not all of them. Now, at each of the rallies he's attended with Mr. Tinubu, the best he has done is raise his hand and indicate he's a candidate of the ruling APC. He then goes on to say the people should vote for honest leaders. The people should vote for people who will come and do the work. So now, I think the handwriting's on the wall. They're now starting to read it, and they now realize that he's dead serious about delivering a free and fair election, and he's not going to overtly or clearly support them over other candidates.
Joseph Many via WhatsApp says, ordinary Nigerians are being stretched to the elasticity limit. Imagine the CBN claiming to steadily give commercial banks new notes, yet the banks and their managers have the audacity to sell these to hawkers, and security agencies turn their eyes away. This is the same attitude that is happening along the borders, where petrol meant for Nigeria is sold to other countries. May God help us. Daisy says, no, we are not bashing you today. It's to say, all right, Daisy is definitely on the live stream on YouTube. Hi, Daisy. Idima Puza says, what is happening in Nigeria now concerning the fuel scarcity and the new Naira Wahala is what fella sang, Suffer, Suffer for World. Okay. And Nee says the killer trucks in Lagos. All right, Nee, we're not on that story yet, but we're definitely going to be talking about that on Lagos Talks. And we have a representative from the government on the show this morning. All right, so let's move on to Punch. Now, some yet to be identified assailants attacked the office of the Independent National Electoral Commission at Ojoto in the Demili local government area of Anambra State. Now, hoodlums also attacked the Nobi police station and a residential building. And according to reports, a teenager was killed as well in Anambra State. So these gunmen invaded the facilities on Wednesday about 1 a.m. and they were armed with petrol bombs and other explosives.
Okay, so thank you, Zibi. And our thoughts go out to the family of the teenage boy that lost his life. And we also go out to the girl who's injured, and we pray the loved ones receive the grace and fortitude to deal with this incident. Now, having said that, I'm looking at the story and I see that the police claim to have repelled the hoodlums before they could carry out further attacks. But the same story says the INEC office was razed or destroyed. So this repelling came after the fact, after the event. And it then begs the question, you repelled them. So in repelling them, you didn't kill anyone, you didn't injure anyone, you didn't catch any of them. So it calls into question, did you actually repel anything? But that's your story, and I'm taking it with a pinch of salt. Now, the bigger question for me is this. There have been recurrent attacks on INEC offices in the southeast. And we've continued to advocate here on this show that lessons should be learned, fortify the INEC offices, and for whatever reason, keep, since you cannot protect the INEC offices, can you just keep the things in the vaults, in the CBN premises? I'm yet to read of an attack on the CBN property. So if it's what will protect the election materials, then that is what should be done. Now, when you read the story further, these are the items that were destroyed by the hoodlums: voting cubicles, ballot boxes, election bags, megaphones, one electric power generator, and large quantities of indelible ink and liquid gum. Now, apart from the indelible ink and liquid gum, we must remember less than 6 or 8 months ago, there was an election in Anambra State. There was a gubernatorial election. Where are the materials that were used for that election? Why are we ordering new ones? Where are the ballot boxes that were used for that election? Did you destroy them after the election? Did you sell them? Where are the cubicles? Did you sell them? So why are we replicating purchases and wasting money when we can be conserving money? Yes, the indelible ink would have been used up. That's why I separated it. The election bags, the bags you used the last time, where are they? Why are we not using them again? An electric power generator. Please buy another one.
But what does this mean for the elections in the southeast if this attacks on INEC facilities in the southeast they've continued for a while? Are people in the area going to feel confident and safe enough to actually go out and vote?
I think the people will still come out and vote, and I put the blame squarely at the foot of the governors. The governors like to pretend they're not in charge of security in the states, but that's a lie. They'll tell you that the commissioners of police take the instructions from Abuja, the force headquarters. But I'll tell you this, when the governor wants to harass a political rival, it is this same policeman that he seemingly has no control over that carry out his instructions. Now, everybody takes their stance from the position or the disposition of the man in charge. If the man in charge says, look, you know what? We know all the bad boys in this state. We know who your sponsors, who your godfathers are. Enough is enough. you tell the godfathers, if there's any subsequent attack, we're holding you responsible. The message will trickle down because no godfather wants to be in detention. No godfather wants to be in prison. So you just put an end to the nonsense. You know who the people carrying out. They know, they receive intelligence reports. Storm their camps, whatever it is. You can use the stick and carrot approach, and you tell them, look, I'm prepared to create opportunities for you to gainfully and legitimately make money. But if you insist you will not exploit those opportunities, do not operate within my state. And if you do, I will deal with you decisively. When you set the tone right, everybody will behave.
We've got some messages coming through. Mary from Ogudu says, new Naira notes are scarce, but I think it's a deliberate action of the CBN to force our economy into a full cashless society. I believe if we could fully embrace it, it could achieve this goal. The banks need to work towards making it less stressful to get 100 Naira bills to execute low value transactions. Yemi from Marina says, I agree with El Rafai. I smell a conspiracy here. The ruling parties seem to be limiting their candidates' ability to mobilize financially and painting the party as worthless with the current fuel scarcity. Wait till after elections. Money supply will improve, petrol will be available, and queues will disappear. Saratu says EFCC should investigate the people who spray the new Naira notes at parties while other Nigerians are suffering under the sun queuing at ATMs. Some bank staff are involved in this corruption. Wale says, I am tired, honestly. Ooh. Okay. And this one is from Joseph. How has the CBN succeeded in making people believe that the commercial banks are the problem in this new Naira cash problem needs to be studied? CBN is giving banks less than 10% of their demands. How can it go round? And something that Mary said, is this really perhaps the way to force the system into going into this cashless policy that has been in place for so long?
So we can't rule that out, but if you're really trying to do that, you should make sure that the other back-end services are working optimally. And what am I talking about? People should be able to do online transactions seamlessly. Transactions should not be failing. So if you use your debit card, it should work. If you do a bank transfer, it should work. So when you have either or both not working and then you don't have cash, it's a recipe for chaos and the breakdown of law and order.
All right, final message. CBN is being economical with the truth. Their real reason for this redesign is to mop up cash outside the banks. All other reasons are spurious. This scarcity is deliberate, if not explained why CBN instructs banks to load only 200 Naira into ATMs. We refuse to learn, we refuse to investigate, we refuse to hold people accountable. And that's from Olumide from Lekki. That's all the time for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you so much, Mr. C.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening. Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.